Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of The Daily. It's Wednesday, June 29th, here with Greg Lawless. I'm Nick Fershaw, and Greg, let's take a look back at some of the biggest headlines from Tuesday night. A wild night in U.S. Open Cup qualifying, the round of 16. 8 MLS teams in action, and a handful of them had a hard time getting through this round.
Yeah, but they did get through. There was drama from start to finish on this night. Down in Dallas, Milton Rodriguez with a stoppage time goal for the win for FC Dallas. In Seattle, Mike Facito with 2 goals to beat regional rivals Kitsap Pumas. By the way, in that 2-1 victory for Kitsap, Nick Bisagno, a former #1 MLS Super Draft pick, was with the goal for Kitsap. In New York, John Rooney with a goal and his fellow rookie Corey Herzog in a comeback victory against FC New York. And finally, out in Los Angeles, another comeback, the Galaxy beating the LA Blues, and it was Omar Gonzalez and Mike McGee. Just about a week after he's playing in goal, he gets the match winner in this one.
Some drama for those teams. 3 teams went through fairly easily. Real Salt Lake, Sporting Kansas City, and the Chicago Fire, all with big wins on Tuesday night. One MLS team didn't get through. That's the Columbus Crew, Greg. They lose to the Richmond Kickers.
Yeah, they did. A 2-1 victory 2-1 loss for Columbus in Columbus, which is something that obviously they didn't want to see this happen. They played at some of their reserves, certainly, and it backfired on them. Richmond move on. They will end up facing Sporting Kansas City on July 12th.
Again, those games, July 12th. For full coverage of the U.S. Open Cup, you can log on to MLSsoccer.com. Let's switch gears a little bit to the MLS slate. Wednesday night, there's some midweek action. Toronto FC and the Vancouver Whitecaps, the Canadian rivalry, getting restarted. That's at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Matchday Live. Greg, this is the league game. They'll go at it for the Neutral Light Canadian Championship this weekend. What do you see tonight?
Well, you know, when you said restart, that's the key here. These are 2 teams that are trying to restart their whole season. Right now, they're both at the bottom of their respective conferences. Vancouver, you have to imagine, has a little bit more confidence. You know, they got a win a couple of weeks ago. They've been scoring some nice goals and things like that, which will help them. You know, you look back at the last time they faced Toronto in that NCC match that was cut short because of the weather, and they had a lead. So they feel like maybe they're going to Toronto. They can succeed in Toronto, and they want to get some momentum going into that weekend match. On the other side, Toronto FC really just trying to find an identity of some sort. They have mentioned they're going to make some moves in the summer, so it still remains to be seen what's going to happen with TFC.
And don't forget, the Vancouver Whitecaps won the first game between these 2 teams back in the regular season. The season opener, Vancouver rolled to a 4-2 win out at Empire Field. Let's talk about the U.S. national team here. There's some news about Bob Bradley and his security and his coaching job. The New York Times reporting that Sunil Gulati has said they're going to have a statement. U.S. Soccer will have a statement on Bob Bradley later this week. What do you expect?
Well, you know, hearing the rhetoric that's out there in the world right now about Bob Bradley and the way that the U.S. national team did at the Gold Cup, you really just don't know. Some people are saying, look, he made it to the final. What more would you ask from him? You lost to a very good Mexico team, so there's nothing to be ashamed of there. But at the same time, there are people that feel like this team has become a little bit stilted and that there's a chance that there will be a change. Who knows? Sunil Gulati, obviously a very smart man. He's going to make the right decision ultimately for the program, and it still remains to be seen.
Mark Ziegler, a reporter down in San Diego, also reporting that Bob Bradley has, quote, lost the locker room, citing a source saying that some of the players are miserable. You can find that in the kickoff Wednesday on MLSsoccer.com. And one last thing before we go, there's an article on the site yesterday about Tim Howard, the U.S. goalkeeper, and those comments from the Gold Cup. Greg, he's apologizing for the language. He's a father. He doesn't want to use that kind of language, but not apologizing for the sentiment and what he meant about those post-game celebrations from CONCACAF.
Yeah, well, he put out a release following his comments after the final, saying that he was offended, or he thought it was a disgrace that CONCACAF would allow the post-match celebrations and all of the post-match ceremony to be in Spanish when they're playing in Los Angeles. He came out with a statement yesterday saying that he apologizes. He hopes he hasn't offended anybody with that. At the same time, he also sort of, you know, stuck to his guns a little bit and said, I still think that in Los Angeles there should have been done in both languages for the finalists.
And again, you can find that story and all the latest headlines and a preview of tonight's game between Toronto and Vancouver on MLSsoccer.com.